So pretty much immediately after Jake Paul fraud checked Mike Tyson, the UFC made two massive announcements. And I'll be honest, I didn't see one of them coming. You know which one that is. Colby Covington is actually back against a new contender in the welterweight division. This isn't him looking for a Gilbert Burns matchup after Burns has been shown that he's kind of on the way out of his career. This is Colby Covington taking on an up-and-coming contender in the welterweight division. And he's stepping up on short notice to fight in the main event. But also, Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov is the 5-round co-main event of UFC 310 in December at the end of the year. No belt on the line. When Dana White, he was teasing this before, he said he was going to make an announcement today about the fights that were taking place and what was going to be on UFC 310. And when he said there was no title on the line, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. I bet you it's going to be Adesanya versus Strickland too. But instead, we get two massive fights, and they've made really smart moves here. Of course, we thought at first it was going to be like a Pereira versus Ankalaev steps up and saves the day. A lot of people were saying that Ian Garry could be an option, but then who was going to be the replacement opponent for Joaquin Buckley? And I was thinking, okay, maybe it could be Sean Brady or someone along those lines. Or people were saying for this matchup with Rakhmonov versus Garry that maybe it would be, Usman stepping in to fight for the interim belt. But Kamaru Usman actually said that he's not ready to fight in December. So, hey, I know people trash Ian Garry, but respect. He's stepping up to fight a full training camp, prepared Shavkat Rakhmonov. And I know that Ian Garry's been in training camp as well, and it's still like enough time away from the fight where he can adjust his training camp, but it is a night and day different opponent for the both of them, to be fair. Shavkat was preparing for Belal. Ian Garry was preparing for Buckley. Shorter, stockier opponents. Belal, no power whatsoever. Buckley, a bit more of a power hitter in the division. And, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Garry, and Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley. Huge. I'll talk about both the matchups. So, I'm leaning towards Rakhmonov here. I will say, I can see Ian Garry making a bit of a fight out of this. Listen, I know Shavkat Rakhmonov's very good. I know he's got a lot of hype. A lot of people are very big on Shavkat Rakhmonov. And they have reason to be. He's looked amazing. He's got an 100% finish rate. He's beaten everyone in the UFC that he's fought by finish. We're seeing increasingly now that, well, no, we're not. Everyone beats Neil Magny dominantly if they're ever going to be anything. But, apparently Dana White had something big for maybe Carlos Prates even. He said that if he didn't break his foot, which he had a broken foot in the Neil Magny fight, then he would be in store for something big. So maybe this was an opportunity for him. Maybe he was supposed to fight Luque, who Nick Diaz recently pulled out against. But this is an interesting one because it now leaves the main event of UFC 310 as Alejandro Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. So not only is Kai Asakura as big of a name as he is, who sells out stadiums and arenas in Japan, not only is he getting a title shot in his debut, he's headlining a pay-per-view with a title shot in his debut. Which is crazy, but there's story to that if he pulls it off, right? So they're really hoping that he gets a win over Pantoja, I would imagine. And he does have an opportunity to do so. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Garry, dangerous matchup for Ian Garry, I believe. I think this is going to be dictated by the fact that I just think Shavkat's stronger than him. Maybe you can call it diet all you want. Horse meat, vegan. Look at the chest hair difference. Look at the forearm hair difference on the pair of them. You know what I mean? Their facial hair difference. It's just, it's very obvious, okay, that Ian Garry's on a vegan diet. No, but seriously, I do think the strength is going to be the factor. The strength is going to be a big factor here. I don't know why they didn't make it for an interim belt. But I would imagine that this has something to do with the fact that if Ian Garry wins, they don't want to make sure that they guarantee him a title shot, which is kind of unfair. He should deserve one if he wins this. But he's number 7 in the division. This would be his first real top win. I know people he beat MVP, in quotes. He beat MVP, kind of stalled out that fight and got the rounds that he needed to. But he also, beat Jeff Neal pretty uneventfully, and that was after Jeff Neal had lost a few. So he's not really beaten a good, legit top 5 guy or top 10 guy, really. I think Jeff Neal was like number 9 in the rankings or number 8 in the rankings, and it wasn't too impressive. So I don't know if they want to lock themselves in to guarantee that we're going to see Belal Muhammad versus Ian Garry next, because, you know, they could be booking a Usman versus JDM in February, and if JDM goes out there and gets a KO in Australia, crowd goes wild, all of a sudden they're going to be considering him as an option over Ian Garry if he pulls off a win. So they're not cornering themselves here, much like Ian Garry does. But I think Shavkat wins. I think on the feet it's going to be quite even. I think Ian Garry, kick-wise, he's going to have a bit of an advantage here. Shavkat does have some good dynamic kicks, but I think in terms of the simple stuff, like the inside low kick stomps, low kicks in general, teeps, things like that, Ian Garry's going to have an advantage. I don't rate Ian Garry's boxing that highly. I think Shavkat, he is open to be hit. But I honestly think it comes down to like a genetic component, which is unfortunate for Ian Garry here, because I think technically he is very, very good. But am I wrong in saying I just trust Shavkat's chin way more? I trust he'll be stronger in the clinch a lot more. I trust he'll be able to push through pain a lot more. And that is tough for Ian Garry, because that's a tough pill to swallow, but I think he'll make a good fight out of it. I can see Shavkat winning this fight by later rounds TKO. You know, we saw Son Kanan drop Ian Garry. I know like Jeff Neal rocked Shavkat. He didn't rock Ian Garry, but then it was also not fun whatsoever, and Shavkat took it to Jeff Neal, broke him and finished him. You know, so styles make fights there. But yeah, I'm going to trust in Shavkat Rakhmonov. I'm going to trust in Shavkat. I think we'll see a lot of over-under position up against the cage. Ian Garry does do some things with that, but I think he can be pushed against the cage. We saw Shavkat had a huge strength advantage over Jeff Neal, and that was when Jeff Neal was a lot bigger in that fight. He missed weight by quite a bit, and he was strong in that fight, and Shavkat was holding him against the cage quite easily and teeing off with knees to the body, and I think that's where he was going to have success against Belal Muhammad. So I think he's going to work that against Ian Garry, you know, stay at range, and then when he gets his chance after some offensive moves, he's going to go to push Ian Garry up against the cage, look for knees to the body, look for knees to the thigh, start dragging him around a little bit, see if he can get dominant position in the grappling. But I think even if they are at range after that and he doesn't keep Ian Garry there, we will see him start to win the exchanges on the feet by just being able to take more. Better chin, a little bit more pop on his shots, in my opinion. Better finishing instincts, maybe. I don't know, though. Ian Garry, his combos by finish are really, really good. I'm just upset we now no longer see Ian Garry versus Joaquin Buckley. The Buck versus the Cut was a huge matchup, in my opinion. And I really wanted to do a Joaquin Buckley interview because of this reason. Now, maybe you still can, okay? But we got this matchup against Colby Covington. I'm going with Shavkat. I'll say Shavkat wins by 4th round TKO. That's what I'm predicting, maybe a 4th or 5th round. But Ian Garry gives a really good show for himself, and everyone's like, you know what, respect for Ian Garry. He proved that he's a warrior, but Shavkat, man, he's just too much. I can see that being the narrative leaving this fight. Shavkat goes on to get a title shot against Belal. Covington versus Buckley, though. Let's talk about this. I just think Buckley's going to be too strong for him early. I think I can see an early TKO for Buckley here, guys. Am I wrong in saying that Buckley might make Covington look like Morono? Which is actually not that... The first 2 rounds against Morono for Buckley weren't crazy impressive. Listen, guys. Covington can win. But I am going to go with Buckley. I think it's logical to go with Buckley with the amount of time that Covington's been out for. Listen, I get it. The Don won the election, you know what I mean? Covington's got a bit of... You know what I mean? He's feeling himself a little bit. You know, he's doing a dance at home, pumping his fists. And he's like, give me Buckley now. It's kind of weird that Covington saw Trump win and then went, I want Buckley. Okay? There's no Hispanic welterweights right now. You know what I mean? So either way, it's interesting. It's a good matchup. I like that Covington's taking the fight. I like that he's taking it on short notice. I rate that. I like that Covington's back. This is a great fight night main event. You know, normally we'd get a Covington on a pay-per-view. We don't get fight night main events when there's like a huge star in the main event. I know people are going to say Covington ain't fought in ages. He's not too big of a star and all this and all that. But, you know, I could see this going pretty well for him. The thing is with Covington, though, is that on paper, the wrestling credentials that he has, he took down Usman. He stuffed Usman's takedowns. He took it to Usman in their fights. I just don't see that guy anymore. Even in the rematch against Usman, in the last 3 rounds, he gritted down and he showed, in my opinion, that he went to a draw with Usman. 10-8 in the second round to Usman. Last 3 rounds were Covington. You know? I just, in the Edwards fight, I know he broke his foot, but he's been out for a long time now. Buckley's going to be gritty. He's going to be out there looking for the kill. He's not going to be like, oh, I'm not sure if my chin's going to be the same. Like, there's a lot of thoughts that are going to be going on in Covington's ever-growing forehead that aren't going to be going on in Buckley's. You know what I mean? It's just he's going to be worried. He's going to be a little bit tentative. Have I still got it? I've been out for a long time. Is this going to work the same for me as it does? Am I going to be able to just get a hold of this guy and take him down? Because if Buckley has shown one thing, it's that he's hard to hold down. He's a ball of muscle for the division. He's really good at tucking up and getting back up to his feet. You know what I mean? A lot of people that are taller, you know, they get their frame broken down and then they're laid flat on the canvas and it's kind of hard for them to get under themselves. But Buckley's really good at sort of creating distance and then working his way back up. You know, getting his legs under him, getting his base under him and starting to work up from there. So I do see Buckley winning. You know, he's had momentum. We know he's not injured. We can assume Covington isn't because he's took this on short notice, but yeah, I just don't think he's going to have the same mentality as the Covington of old. And then I look back at some of the Covington fights and I think, damn, Maia was stinging him on the feet, you know? And then you look at the RDA fight and you think, man, look back at the RDA fight. That's a very close fight to score in hindsight. You know, Joe Rogan goes on his podcast, says, people got to shut the fuck up now, man. People forget, man. He does all this gimmick and people think he can't fight. He's a fighter. He put it on RDA. And I'm like, yeah, he did. He put on a crazy pace. He ain't established much control. I know it was a different RDA, but Buckley's built a lot different to RDA, guys. He's a lot bigger. He's fought at middleweight. He rarely gets out-muscled at middleweight. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I just don't like this for Colby. I'd love to do an interview with either one of these guys for the fight. Covington is, I could see it turning into a shouting match where he calls me fat the whole time. That could be good promo. Guys, I'm up for it. Or Buckley, where we could talk about Ian Garry and Colby Covington here. Because I would be picking Buckley, so I think he gets this one done. Good matchup, though. Really good matchup. It's good to see things happening at welterweight. I am going to go Buckley TKO. I am going to go Buckley TKO here. Yeah. Covington, man. It's the punch, it's the chin I'm worried for. His chin's good. It's not like he gets chinned in fights. It's just he has a bit of timidity about him. And against Buckley, if you're a bit timid and you're not ready to plant and fire with a powerful shot, that's how you beat Buckley. He comes in, he dips in on the inside, swings his hooks and goes for his exchanges. You've got to be able to plant your feet and crack him. You know what I mean? And then he goes down and you've got Buckley. That's why I think a Shavkat could do it against Buckley. Even an Ian Garry would have a better chance, even though I was picking Buckley to beat him. Or a JDM. You know, he's got heat in his hands if someone crashes forward on him. Covington, I just don't think he's got enough power to get respect. So I think Buckley could just back him up. Back him up. Keep going for him. Covington might reactionary shoot takedowns, but I don't see him keeping Buckley there. His jiu-jitsu's never really been his strong point. I'm going to go Buckley by TKO. I'll say Buckley by TKO in the first or second. I rate Covington for taking the fight, though. But this is going to be a good performance from Buckley. And I imagine a good performance, but a good scrap in Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Garry. In terms of the rest of the division, how does this make everything else play out? I reckon they do Usman JDM, Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. No brainer. Usman's ready to go, but not quite for December. That sounds like he's ready to go in February in Australia. So I can see Usman JDM being in Australia and then forking out a bit more money to Usman for him to go to Australia. Because they need something on that card, right? They do need something. Not many title owners right now in the UFC are going to want to take themselves to Australia to fight. So, you know, I could see like a card with Volk Lopez interim belt, you know. Adesanya on there, Usman on there. That would encourage Usman to go over there. If Adesanya's on there as well, I could see that. Yeah, and it would also leave Leon Edwards, Sean Brady as maybe the co-main event of a Paddy Pimblett, Renato Moicano main event at UFC Fight Night London in March. That kind of sorts out the whole of the welterweight division unless I'm forgetting about someone obvious. I don't think I am. I think that kind of settles it. Yeah. Good stuff. Big fights. UFC wasted no time putting these out as soon as, Mike Tyson's fraud checking was done. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be good. Ian Garry, you always open to an interview with you, pal? I'm joking now. I think that ship has sailed. But this is cool. I like this. Respect to Covington, man. He's back. Listen, I know we trash him, but when they do step up and fight, respect. He could have, been babying and crying for a bigger fight than this. I want the Edwards rematch. You know how Covington is. Give me the Edwards rematch. I deserve the Usman trilogy and JDM next. And he even mentioned JDM's name, but this is the matchup. It's in Tampa, Florida. It's in his home state. We'll see how it goes. Like and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. Big fights. Huge fights. Looking forward to them. Yeah. Buckley, second round KO. Shavkat, fourth round. Submission / TKO. Overwhelming finish after a good showing from Ian Garry early. Goodbye.